The NASA astronaut who said that UFO cover-ups are real. Now, for decades, NASA has insisted that there is no credible evidence proving extraterrestrials have visited Earth, right? What a load of rubbish, right? But what if one of NASA's own astronauts disagreed? Not just any, right? One of America's greatest test pilots. A bloke called Gordon Cooper, right? One of the original Mercury 7 gang, right? A man trusted to fly experimental aircrafts that few people even knew existed. A man who spent more than 200 hours in space. That's a long time, isn't it? His name, as I say, was Gordon Cooper. And until the day he died, he never, ever stopped saying the UFO cover-up was real. He would never drop it, right? And today we're looking at one of the most extraordinary testimonies ever given by a NASA astronaut. Because according to Gordon Cooper, the evidence already existed. It was simply being hidden. Now, before I start waffling on about UFOs, because I can do that, right? Let's talk about the man first. So, Gordon Cooper wasn't a conspiracy theorist looking for attention. He wasn't a self-proclaimed psychic, even though there's nothing wrong with them, or someone making outrageous claims decades after their retirement. And I will go and say, or someone making claims decades after their retirement, because after their retirement and they're getting nearer to their deathbed, they're more braver to do it. So I'm not going to say it's outrageous, it's just claims, right? But he wasn't one of those. He was one of the finest pilots America ever produced. After serving in the United States Air Force, Cooper became one of the country's elite test pilots. This wasn't ordinary flying, right? Test pilots pushed aircrafts beyond their design limitations. And sadly, a lot of them never came home. Only those with exceptional skill were trusted with experimental technology. These abilities eventually earned him a place in history. In 1959, Gordon Cooper became one of NASA's original Mercury 7 astronauts, the men chosen to put America in space. So his achievements were remarkable. He became the first American astronaut to sleep in space. He completed the longest Mercury mission ever flown and became the last American to orbit Earth completely alone. To NASA, he was a national hero. To fellow astronauts, he was one of the best, which raises an uncomfortable question. If someone with credentials like that tells you UFOs are real, then shouldn't we at least listen? Let's face it, as an astronaut, well, an astronaut is without doubt the best UFO witness you can get. And I totally believe everything Gordon Cooper's telling me, right, or telling us. So long before Cooper ever climbed aboard a spaceship or a spacecraft, he was stationed in West Germany in 1951. And then the Cold War was beginning, right? Military aircraft constantly filled the skies. Pilots knew exactly what belonged there and what didn't, right? And for several nights, Cooper watched strange metallic objects moving silently overhead. They weren't aircrafts, he recognised. They weren't behaving like aircrafts do, right? He later described them as metallic, saucer-shaped, moving with incredible speed and complete silence. So remember, this is Gordon Cooper. You know, he's a test pilot. He's out in the desert, right? And he's seeing these things and going, I don't know what they are, man. Now, years later, he explained there was no doubt in his mind that these objects were intelligently controlled. And he had even less doubt that they hadn't been built on Earth. Coming from almost anyone else, that statement would probably have been dismissed. Coming from one of America's most experienced military pilots, right, it carried far more weight. So you can't just dismiss this, can you? But even that wasn't the encounter Gordon Cooper believed was most important, right? That happened 6 years later, 6 years after seeing these metallic discs. And it was one of America's most secret military bases. So it was May the 3rd, Edwards Air Force Base, California. Right, now this was one of the most heavily guarded aviation facilities in America. Rocket testing was underway. Bear in mind, this is the Cold War, right? Rocket testing was underway. Film cameras had been positioned around the base to record every launch. Then something completely unexpected appeared. Around 50 yards away, a silver-shaped craft silently hovered above the desert floor. Now, witnesses watched as 3 landing legs extended from beneath the object, and it slowly descended and touched the ground. Now, there was no engine noise, no propellers, no exhaust, no sonic boom, just silence. Now, members of Cooper's team cautiously began walking towards it, apparently. And as they started walking towards it, then without warning, the craft lifted effortlessly back into the air. And within moments, it accelerated away, disappearing into the California sky. But perhaps the most extraordinary part of the story wasn't the sight in itself, it's what happened afterwards. Because I said there were cameras everywhere, because the entire event had been captured on film. Of course, following military procedure, as you would imagine Gordon Cooper would do, Gordon Cooper packaged the footage and sent it directly to the Pentagon. Now, what he did, he expected investigators to analyse it, but instead, the film disappeared and he never saw it again. No explanation, no report, no discussion. It was simply gone. And we hear that story all the time, don't we? You know, they saw it, they thought, my God, we can't let this get out to the public, and they stole it. Now, for Cooper, that was the moment everything changed, right? He realised that the footage had just gone. For years, Gordon Cooper remained relatively quiet, probably pondering the situation. He understood military secrets. He understood classified projects, but eventually he decided the public deserved answers. Right, in interviews throughout the 1970s, the 1980s and the 1990s, he repeatedly spoke about UFOs. He insisted the objects he witnessed were genuine. He also claimed government possessed far more evidence than they admitted publicly. Of course they do. They also own that footage that's gone missing. So in 1978, he took an extraordinary step. Remember, Gordon Cooper, astronaut. He wrote directly to the United Nations, and in his letter, he urged world leaders to seriously investigate UFOs, not as fantasy. Don't rule it as science fiction, but as a scientific question deserving international cooperation. You imagine if they did do that, right? He argued that if these visitors truly were from another world, then they were almost certainly far more technically advanced than any human. Well, but he said, look, rather than fear them, he believed humanity should prepare for peaceful communication. Look, you don't have to fear them, I don't think. All right, these aliens have been knocking around for thousands of years. They've been, you know, the Nuremberg painting, I think they call it a Nuremberg sheet or something, clearly dictates, right, this was in 1500s, clearly dictates an aerial battle. And there's paintings everywhere with UFOs in them. I mean, there's literature going back thousands of years. So when you look and you think, mate, that is a UFO. The Bible says it all the time, right? So they've been knocking around for thousands of years, so we shouldn't have to fear them. He believed humanity, though, should prepare for peaceful communication if the aliens want to do it, because I don't think they do. Would you want to communicate with us? But Cooper also warned that something else was preventing serious investigation, and this is important: ridicule. Right? Scientists stayed silent because of ridicule. Pilots stayed silent because of ridicule. Even astronauts stayed silent. Not because they had anything to say, but because speaking openly could and would destroy their careers. One of Gordon Cooper's most revealing comments wasn't about aliens either. It was about fear. He claimed many astronauts had their own experiences, but choose never to discuss them publicly. Not because they hadn't seen strange things, because they bloody well had, right? But because they feared becoming associated with sensational stories. He believed serious witnesses were often drowned out by hoaxes. And that's the problem we have today, isn't it? AI. Photoshop before that, AI now, you know. You never really know what's true. As a result, credible people simply kept quiet. But Cooper refused, right? He continued speaking publicly until the end of his life. Even though every interview attracted criticism, he never changed his story, not once. Right, the biggest allegation, he come up with, that he personally believed, was reverse tech. As remarkable as his UFO sightings were, he said, they weren't his most controversial belief. In later interviews, Gordon Cooper suggested governments possessed recovered UFO technology, and I 100% believe that. He hinted that reverse engineering alien craft was entirely possible, perhaps even underway, and it is. They are doing that, definitely. He also made another astonishing statement. He claimed to have been present at a military installation when they brought one in. Now, exactly what he meant, he never fully explained it, to be honest with you. Was he referring to recovered technology? Yeah, maybe. A crashed UFO. You know, did they bring one of them out? Yeah, it could have been. Or something far more extraordinary. The trouble is, he never ever clarified it. Instead, he just sat there, right? And he smiled, he simply smiled, basically. He said, yeah, they brought one out, and then smiled and never explained it. But that allowed listeners to draw their own conclusions. Those few words have fueled decades of speculation, and I reckon it's all free. Gordon Cooper passed away in 2004, regretfully, but unlike many famous UFO witnesses, his testimony has never disappeared. Today, as you know, governments openly investigate unidentified anomalous phenomena. They do. Military pilots now routinely report encounters with objects they cannot explain. And congressional hearings have discussed possible retrieval programs. Right? Former intelligence officers have alleged long-running secrecy surrounding unexplained technology exists. Whether those modern claims ultimately prove yes or no whether UFOs exist, I don't need that. They do exist. But these have caused many people to look back at Gordon Cooper's words with fresh interest. So was he simply mistaken? No, he wasn't. Did he misinterpret the classified technology? No, I don't think he did. Or was one of America's greatest astronauts trying to tell us something that the public wasn't ready to hear? Yes, he was. Look, perhaps we'll never know, but one thing is certain: Gordon Cooper risked his reputation to tell the world what he believed. He never became wealthy from the claims. What's always nice, he never sought political office. Again, what's a good thing. And despite decades of criticism, he never changed his story. Right, so the question is, maybe the real mystery, it isn't whether Gordon Cooper believed UFOs were real, because he clearly did. The mystery is why one of NASA's most respectable astronauts felt compelled to spend the rest of his life warning us that the truth was being hidden. What do you think? What do you think? We know the truth is being hidden. Gordon Cooper, for me, was an amazing man. Risked everything to go out there and tell the likes of us, the government are lying to you. The government are hiding stuff. They have reversed alien crashed UFOs and reversed that technology. TR-3Bs, the triangle ship. Some of them are ours, apparently. Some of them are alien. I am totally going to buy that. Now, look, if you've enjoyed today's documentary, don't forget to subscribe to UFO Aliens and Weird Stuff and leave a comment. And like it if you can. Like my video. That would be fantastic. Because liking is really important. Right? It gets more videos out there. So look, just ding that like bell and add a comment. That would be great. Yeah, if you are really interested in UFOs and you like the Gordon Cooper story, leave me a comment. All right, well, this was UFO Aliens Weird Stuff. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll catch you on the next one.